Hello, welcome to Continental Prime here on News Center Television, coming to you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. The headlines for this hour. Kenya slams UN's top court over its ruling on the maritime border dispute with Somalia. Ex-combatants of South Africa's liberation struggle demand benefits promised a year ago. Nigeria's public workers, come December, will show proof of positive COVID-19 test or vaccination before they are allowed to access their offices. Details shortly. For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is Continental Prime. I'm Sulaiman, Aledeh. The news begins in East of Africa, where Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has slammed a ruling by the UN's top court to hand Somalia control of most of a potential oil and gas-rich chunk of the Indian Ocean, following a bitter row between the two countries. Kenyatta says his government rejects and does not recognize the findings in the decision by the International Court of Justice. The ruling gave Nairobi only a tiny slice of the disputed tract of the sea off the East African coast.
Surprised by the decision, it is profoundly concerned by the import of the decision and its implications for the Horn of Africa region and international law generally. At the very onset, Kenya wishes to indicate that it rejects in totality and does not recognize the findings in the decision. This decision is, in the circumstances, a zero-sum game, which will only strain the relations between our two countries. It will also reverse the social, political, and economic gains and potentially aggravate the peace and security situation in the fragile Horn of Africa region.
But in a televised speech after the ruling of the ICJ, Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed urged Nairobi to see the court's decision as an opportunity to strengthen the relationship of the two countries.
Aledeh oo ku astaysan aragti fog dhiiranaan wadaniyad ilaalinta ammaanada ummadda iyo difaaca dalka waxaan u mahadcelinayaa maxkamadda cadaaladda adduunka oo u hiilisay sarreynta sharciga xukunkani waa astaan aad u qurux badan oo markhaati ka ah hufnaanta iyo daahfurnaanta maxkamadda ICJ waxaa bogaadin taasoo beddelkeedana ay go'aanka maxkamaddu u aragto fursad lagu xoojin karo xiriirka labada dal iyo iskaashiga labada shacab ee dariska ah Soomaaliya inay Kenya daris la noqoto ma dooran ee Allah awoodda leh ayaa qadaray waan isku qasbannahay inaan nabad iyo daris wanaag ku wada noolaano Soomaaliya taas ayay ku taamaysay waligeedna ka go'nayd haddana soo dhaweyn.
On the border dispute, Professor David Kikaya, a former Kenyan ambassador to the United Nations and lecturer at the United States International University in Nairobi, joins me. Well, good to see you, Professor Kikaya. Let's start with a backstory into the dispute. How did it all begin and what led to the conflict? We seem to be having an audio connection to Professor Kikaya now. Let's go to South Africa, where former liberation struggle ex-combatants have staged a protest outside the African National Congress headquarters demanding benefits they were promised nearly a year ago. Earlier today, the protesting group caused the party to evacuate their offices. The group includes members of the Koto Swiss Military Veterans Association, former Pan-Africanist Congress, Azanian People's Liberation Army members, and AZAPU's Azanian National Liberation Army. In West Africa, Guinea's interim president, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya has sacked 44 generals and admirals in an apparent purge of the military top brass. 37-year-old Doumbouya, who seized power last month, did not give a reason for the decision. A statement from the junta says the 42 generals and 2 admirals are required to exercise their right to retirement. Among the string of officers is General Sekuba Konate, who briefly ran a transition government before organizing elections in 2010. In Nigeria, the National Assembly says it will start debating clauses of the 2022 budget presentation earlier by President Buhari to a joint session of the National Assembly. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, told members of Parliament that copies of the budget proposal would be presented to them to kick-start the process. The Speaker says the budget debate will last for 2 days and asked those interested in making their views known to submit their names to the House Clerk.
We're having the debate for 2 days, after which we will suspend plenary for work to start on the budget, for committees to do their oversight, defense of budget, and the timetable will be released to the committees, I believe, by tomorrow.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service has come under intense scrutiny as a pro-transparency group says it has uncovered several corruption schemes carried out in the agency. The group claims there has been widespread racketeering and inflation of contracts and mismanagement of several billions of naira in public funds. The group is now calling on the federal government and other relevant agencies to commence a probe into the service's finances.
NAMI's stint at the helm of affairs of FIRS is characterized by contract racketing and contract price inflation, award of contract for the production of souvenir for sensitization awareness for the sum of 1.7 billion naira, contrary to the extant federal government circular to that effect. Meanwhile, there was no sensitization awareness or engagement with the taxpayers as claimed by FIRS management. He awarded contract for the purchase of Xerox laptops at the exorbitant rate of 900,000 naira per unit. Award of contract for the purchase of Toyota Prado Jeep for the sum of 52 million naira per unit. Illegal recruitment of 2,000 staff without recourse to fair character principles. All these and many more are the atrocities going on in FIRS.
At this time that Nigerian is borrowing money to finance project, yet the little one that Nigerian is generating internally, some people are out there looting the country dry. We all have responsibilities as Nigerians to support the government in fighting corruption. And it is not just the duty of only President Muhammadu Buhari. We have responsibility to support the president to succeed.
Well, the current state of insecurity in Nigeria has been attributed to poverty, unemployment, environmental injustice, religious affiliations, political differences, as well as ethnic diversity. This suggests the federal government has some work to do to improve some of these challenges. But to reduce the violence, the country first needs to be unified. Chidima also explains further in this report.
Over the years, many scholars and ordinary Nigerians have continued to wonder whether keeping Nigeria one was worth the shambles of the civil war, especially when the people of the then Eastern Nigeria had expressed their desire to be independent.
The South, they have their own natural resources. The Southeast have their own different natural resources and the North. So I believe that if we come together, we can join hands together and make Nigeria a great place for us to live.
One Nigeria where there will be peace, where there will be unison. This idea of killing, fighting, is not good for us at all.
There is one common love that binds youths all together, whether from the North or from the Southeast or any part of the geopolitical zone. And I believe if they should give a room for youth to play politics in this country, Nigeria will become a very great country.
The task of unifying the various ethnic, religious, political and socio-economic groupings in Nigeria has remained a daunting national challenge, especially by groups that include the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra, the Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People, the Arewa Consultative Forum, Odua People's Congress, amongst others.
I believe in a one united Nigeria. I do not believe that we should go through another civil war. This is a new millennium. Even the so-called civil war eventually ended on a dialogue table.
The fault lines, notably ethnic rivalry, religious intolerance and tribal sentiment, have led to violent agitations towards self-determination as well as mutual distrust.
The truth is, Nigeria right now is like one of the seventh populous country in the world. We have the numbers, fine. We have the numbers, we have the population. But in all of those things, what makes us unique as a country is how well we are united in our diversity.
All efforts by the various governments to surmount the challenges of national unity have not yielded the desired cohesion between and within the various entities that make up Nigeria after 61 years of independence. However, political pundits, public analysts, among other stakeholders, believe that with the right political elite in power, the one Nigeria dream will definitely be achieved in no distant time. Chidima Nwosu, reporting for News Central.
Leaving Nigeria now to go to South Africa, where the South African Veterans Protest has held. Joining me now is Percy Feke, who's a spokesperson for the Liberation Struggle War Veterans. Good to see you, Percy. Quickly here, bring us up to speed. Tell us exactly the grievances of the veterans. What are some of the benefits they're talking about that they were promised a year ago?
Good evening, sir. Thanks to have your host today. Actually, we've got a number of issues which we have raised with the government, most especially the presidency, and that includes a number of issues like once-off gratuity, which we believe that the South African government should be honoring us in terms of giving us that gratuity, once-off gratuity, as people who fought for this country. And secondly, we also requested that the government should speedify the process of giving us a special pension as Liberation Struggle War veterans, so as we're able to keep up our social being with our families and so on. On the 10th of November last year, we went to the Union Building and we spoke to the presidency, and the deputy president was assigned to communicate with us directly on the issues of the struggle war veterans. And we've got a consensus document over that. We agreed on a number of issues that involves once-off gratuity, military pension, special pension, decent houses, land allocation and farms, and we also agreed that we need to review the Military Veterans Act and the Defense Act itself, so as it can be able to accommodate the struggle war veterans in totality.
Well, Percy, let me come in here. Sorry to butt in. Let me come in here. You have a whole lot on your plate, but have you been able to have a sit down with the government to know why the government is not following up on its promises to you and your members?
Well, that is what is amazing us, because the government of the day, it's the government which was put by us as liberation struggle war veterans, which it should honor whatever we've agreed upon. We've got a consensus document which the president knows and the deputy president knows. That is why there was even a presidential task team which was mandated by the president to deal with these matters. But over and above that, and down the line, the government is not prepared to honor all those commitments which we took on those forums that we had with the president. So that is why even today we still feel very strong that our government is not treating us very fairly, so as the people who fought for this country, as the people who dare our lives, and we feel very strong that our government is not treating us fairly, because all that economically was still disadvantaged, and there's no integration that has been effected, which is one of the consensus document which we said. We also said we want decent houses. We don't want 40 square meters. We said we demand that we get 80 square meters to 100 square meters, so as we are able to accommodate even our families, because as Africans, remember, we're big families in that order. So, but our government is not coming to the party over all those things.
Let's quickly get a sense. Sorry again for butting in here. Let's quickly get a sense of what happens now, knowing full well your country has 2 weeks to the local government elections. So will you continue your protest?
Yes, that we feel very strong as liberation struggle war veterans that were treated unfairly, so more especially as a group that has fought for this country, and then we feel very strong that we are not treated fairly. And but we don't say people should not go for the municipality elections and so on. But we want the government to recognize us as liberation struggle war veterans who fought for this country. That is why we're still even challenging the government on a daily basis. We've been communicating with the government. We wrote letters to the government. There's no proper response. And even now, there is an action that is ongoing in terms of challenging the government to say, please, Mr. President and your government, come to the party in terms of addressing our issues, because we do believe that our issues are relevant.
We'd like to thank you very much, Percy Fake, who is the spokesperson for the Liberation Struggle for War Veterans in South Africa, and we will stay on this matter. Many thanks for your time, Percy. Well, to other stories, in Central Africa, major Western donors have pressed the World Health Organization to launch a deeper external probe of a major sexual abuse scandal involving its staff in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They say the probe should examine how the management of WHO reacted to growing allegations and aim to establish broader accountability. The WHO says it has consulted staff, member states, and others on its comprehensive plan to address the recommendations in a draft report on the matter. Now, 7 miners have died and 5 are missing after a makeshift gold mine collapsed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's South Kivu province after heavy rains. Local sources say the collapse was sparked by torrential rains, taking the artisanal diggers by surprise while they were in a shaft at least 6 meters deep. Of 13 people who were in the shaft, only 1 was found alive. The 7 dead miners have been buried at the site, while searching for the 5 masons is underway. The United Nations has recalled a second senior figure from its operations in Ethiopia over controversial remarks about the war in its north. The recall of the head of the UN's Population Fund, Dania Gale, comes after the international body's migration chief, Maureen Aching, who was put on administrative leave. In an interview with a pro-government writer, the two women accused recent emergency coordinators sent by the United Nations of sidelining their office in Ethiopia and suggested a power struggle within the international body. In Kenya, more than 11,000 City Hall employees downed their tools on Wednesday over failure by their employer to address their grievances. The workers complained about medical cover, delayed salaries and promotions, harmonization of staff benefits, and non-remittance of statutory deductions. A scribe of the Workers' Union, Festus Ngari, said the strike would continue until the county government listened to them. Some of their other complaints include non-payment of overtime and other allowances and failure to provide personal protective equipment. Let's head to North Africa, where a fire outbreak has occurred at Egypt's top film festival site a day before it is due to start at a Red Sea resort. Videos on social media showed a blaze engulfing part of the open-air venue that hosts the El Gouna Film Festival before it was extinguished. At least 8 people needed hospital treatment for smoke inhalation. Organizers say only one section of the festival plaza was affected, and the opening ceremony would go ahead as scheduled on Thursday night. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television. Coming up, Nigeria's public workers to show proof of COVID-19 test or vaccination by December 1. We'll have more on this when we return. Stay with us. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, reaching you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Now, in Nigeria, the Labour Union has frowned at the increasing expatriate quota abuse by multinationals operating in the West African country. Also, the union lamented the Nigerian government's lack of political will to address the menace, saying it has compounded the employment problems in the country.
The upsurge in expatriates and its quota abuse in Nigeria has remained topical in the nation's employment system. Organized labor, civil society groups, and other concerned Nigerians have continued to see the increase and abuse as not only an economic crime, but also compounding the employment crisis in the country.
The foreign partners have taken undue advantage of that situation to bring their people all in the name of expatriates. Tell me, how will an expatriate come to Nigeria to say you want to be a market manager when you do not even understand the tradition of the people? How will this happen? How can an expatriate come to this country and be a supervisor? And you call yourself an expatriate. I challenge most of our these companies and see what is playing out.
You will agree with me that the only reason why they abuse the quota is because they are the owner of the companies, they are the investors. And that is why you find them in all levels of work, even where we are not supposed to have expatriates. You can imagine in some companies, we have expatriates as driver of a forklift. We have expatriates as machine operators. So these are very, very disturbing. And I know even there was a presidential order on this. So it has been disturbing the labor movement. And the only thing we can do is to form an alliance with the Nigerian immigration.
The unions, seriously disturbed by the increase in the number of expatriates that have flooded Nigerian firms, are worried by the ugly trend, which if not checked, might lead to many Nigerians losing their jobs to their foreign counterparts.
For staying in the region, Action Aid of Nigeria has expressed concern over the rising cost of inflation in the country. The international non-governmental organization, during a review of the performance of the current administration, notes that unemployment is at an all-time high as more Nigerians have lost their jobs due to the poor state of the economy. The group urged the government to reduce the cost of governance to make funds available for investment in other sectors of the economy.
The standard of living is quite high in Nigeria. The inflation rate currently is put at 17.6%. So what is there to cut? If you go to the, do we have enough workers? No. If you look at the unemployment rate in Nigeria, it is skyrocketing, it is high. We should not look at the cost of paying teachers and paying workers. However, we should look at fair taxation to raise more money. If we want to cut anything, we have to cut the cost of running governance, which is the cost of politicians and all of.
When you now decompose the allocation that goes for social contribution, like how much goes for pension, national health insurance service, access to housing scheme, the Nigerian worker is the worst hit globally. You just have salaries built up into one starch of monthly payment.
A lot of investment is done around the aging, the aging staff of government, and then as within that, it shows that there is possibility of the presence of ghost workers, and then because the bulk of the money is going to that age, no space for employment of young people to replace as people goes out. And it goes along with also to show you that most people who are leaving the services do not go with their retirement benefit on time.
The conditionalities of IMF, World Bank, African Development Bank, Chinese Bank, from all the areas that we are picking this money, we have to adhere, to what their condition is. And what it means is shrinking the public sector, to make space to service debt, because debt servicing is obligatory. Between January and July, we've used up to 98% of our revenue to service debt. There's no country that will sustain, within short dimension. It's not sustainable. So what it means is that the sectors will keep suffering, and while we keep swelling in high debt.
Public service employees in Nigeria will be required to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination or present a negative COVID-19 PCR test done within 72 hours before gaining access to their offices within the country or its missions. This directive was issued today by the Presidential Steering Committee on the Coronavirus, which added that an appropriate service-wide advisory or circular would be given to guide the process. The committee also urged governments at all levels to increase their vigilance and take measures to moderate activities in anticipation of an increase in large gatherings due to year-end festivities. In the meantime, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says the West African country recorded 175 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. It adds that the fatality figure remains at 2,756. The NCDC says the new figure increases the infection toll to 208,153, while 195,936 people have been treated and discharged nationwide. The new cases were reported from 10 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Now, Kenya's COVID-19 infections have risen by 170 from a sample size of more than 4,000 tested in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the rise puts the positivity rate at 3.7%, an increase from 2% on Tuesday. Total confirmed cases now stand at 251,483, while cumulative tests so far conducted at 2.6 million. The ministry says 3 patient deaths were recorded, taking the total fatalities from the virus to 5,198. South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases has reported 942 new COVID-19 cases in the country, which brings the total number of laboratory confirmed cases to 2.9 million. Now, the increase in new cases represents a 2.4% positivity rate. The National Department of Health says a further 37 COVID-19 related deaths were also reported in the past 24 hours, bringing total fatalities to date to 88,466. The agency notes that 18 million tests have been conducted in both the public and private sectors. According to figures from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa reached 8.4 million on Wednesday. The Specialized Healthcare Agency of the African Union says the death toll from the pandemic across the continent now stands at 241,656. The health agency adds that some 7.7 million patients across the continent have recovered from the disease so far. It adds that South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, and Ethiopia are among the countries with the most cases on the continent. Now, experts have criticized the increasing rates of child marriage in Nigeria while identifying education as the panacea. News Central's Omolola Aledeh has more on this.
Despite the universal commitment to end child marriage, 1 in 3 girls in developing countries will probably be married before attaining the age of 18, according to United Nations International Children Education Fund. In Nigeria, 44% of girls are married before their 18th birthday, which is one of the highest rates of child marriage globally. Aside its micro consequences on fertility, health, and well-being, it is believed child marriage has far-reaching macroeconomic and sustainability consequences for the country.
It takes both gender to contribute to nation building. So having a child's education stunted at the time when it is most pivotal for her to have the education, the knowledge, and the skills to be a contributing member of society economically, politically, it is devastating. And that, of course, has further consequences on the achievement of the SDGs. But I also want to draw attention to the fact that many of these girls are scarred for life emotionally and psychologically.
The risk of early childbearing is huge. We have a lot of children who are giving birth to children, that is, babies becoming mothers.
However, ending child marriage in Nigeria would require understanding the root cause of the problem as well as its major contributors, while using education as a major agent of change to get the desired result.
I would say that the most important thing is making girl-child education, health, well-being a priority. Governments must make that priority and set aside funding to ensure that all girls complete secondary school and learn some sort of vocation or go to university. It is most important if we want to create a society in which equality and inclusion and belonging occurs.
Healthy, productive, as well as educated girls and women have roles to play in any society. It is hoped that Nigeria will do all she can to protect the girl child, our dreams, aspirations, and right to make decisions that no doubt shape a future. Omolola Aledeh reporting for News Central.
You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television. Still ahead, 10 Serbs and 10 police officers have been injured during a clash in Kosovo. We have more on this when we return. Join us again. Ten Serbs and 10 police officers were injured on Wednesday when police fired tear gas at a crowd after raids on suspected smugglers in a volatile area of Kosovo. Police say officers met resistance with firearms and grenades in Mitrovica as they carried out an operation to seize smuggled goods in several towns. Interior Minister Salat Sekla said the police operation was not directed against any nationality. He said most of those arrested are Albanians and most of those wanted are also Albanians. The World Health Organization has announced the proposed members of its Scientific Advisory Group for the Origins of Novel Pathogens, or SAGO. Speaking to reporters in Geneva, WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says the group will advise the UN Health Agency on developing a global framework to define and guide studies into the origins of reimagined pathogens. He says 26 experts from over 700 applications were selected for the world-class expertise and experience in various disciplines.
Reported deaths from COVID-19 continues to decline and is now at the lowest level in almost a year. But it's still at an unacceptably high level, almost 50,000 deaths a week. And the real number is certainly higher. Deaths are declining in every region except Europe, where several countries are facing fresh waves of cases and deaths. Following a public call,
well, Egypt is setting a target of a primary surplus of 1.5% of its gross domestic product. However, a statement from the finance minister on Wednesday says a budget deficit of 6.7% of the gross domestic product is projected for the 2021-2022 financial year. The country's financial year runs from July to June. Lekon Onabanjo has the rest of the business news.
Welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekon Onabanjo. And we begin by telling you that the Central Bank of Nigeria has reaffirmed that financial institutions and consumers that violate bank verification numbers would face sanctions. This was disclosed in a circular sent to all deposit money banks, mobile money operators, super agents, and payment service providers. Some of the penalties listed for financial institutions having a customer operating an account without BVN is 2 million naira penalty per infraction, 15% of the total amount credited into the account during the period of the infraction, and 20,000 naira penalty per infraction in a day after the infraction exists. Others are failure to capture customers' biometrics and biodata in line with the BVN framework. Now, the International Monetary Fund has revised South Africa's growth forecast for 2021 by 1%, even as it lowered the global growth forecasts. In its latest World Economic Outlook, the IMF said South Africa's gross domestic product will grow by 5% this year, up from 4% previously forecast in July. The fund's forecast is in line with the South Africa Reserve Bank, which also revised upwards the 2021 GDP forecast to 5.3% from a previous forecast of 4.2%. For 2022, the IMF said the South African economy will grow by 2.2% as the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic stabilizes. Meanwhile, the IMF revised slightly its global growth outlook for 2021 to 5.9% from 6% forecast in July, citing a downgrade for advanced economies. And straight to Kenya, we tell you that the country has been assigned a B+ rating from Augusto and Company Limited, a Pan-African credit rating agency and a leading provider of industry research and knowledge in Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. These lowering rates, according to Augusto and Company, reflects its opinion on Kenya's elevated debt levels, contraction of the country's GDP in 2020 on account of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the deterioration of the Kenyan shilling against major trade currencies. This is in addition to the marginal rise in inflation and unemployment levels in the country. In other news, Egypt and Greece will sign a preliminary deal to build a large electricity cable connecting the two countries, which will be the first agreement of its kind between Europe and Africa in the southwestern Mediterranean. Ministers from the two nations are set to sign a memorandum of understanding on Thursday, according to a spokesman for the Greek Environment and Energy Ministry. The MOU will be signed by Greek Environment and Energy Minister Konstantinos Skrekas and Egyptian Electricity Minister Mohamed Shaka. Finally, the International Air Transport Association has projected that the global air cargo revenue is expected to rise to a record $175 billion, with yields expected to grow by 15% by the end of the year 2021. The disclosure was made by the global aviation body via a statement issued on Tuesday. According to the statement, the prospect of the cargo segment in the short and long term is strong. However, the World Airline Association had stated that $143.8 million in airline revenues are blocked by the Nigerian government from the sale of tickets, cargo space, and other activities, and nearly $1 billion in airline revenues are blocked by government across the globe. And that's business at this hour. More stories on NC Continental Prime will come. Do stay with us. I am Likon Onobanjo.
And that's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at the main stories. Kenya has slammed the United Nations top court for its ruling on the maritime border dispute with Somalia. Ex-combatants of South Africa's liberation struggle have demanded benefits promised to them a year ago. And we told you that Nigeria's public workers will, by December 1, have to show proof of a positive COVID-19 test or vaccination before they are allowed to access their offices. Do follow us on social media. We have News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times, Channel 274, Avio TV, Vision 247, Free TV, as well as on YouTube. I'm Sulaiman. Aledeh, thanks for watching.